welcome back to another episode of Beyond Organised. I have Dr. Melanie here, and I am going to introduce this rather special woman. So, Dr. Melanie Desmuke-Battles is a visionary speaker, leadership strategist, and founder of Scholars for the Soul, an educational solutions firm. With a doctorate in philosophy and reading education and over 20 years of experience helping individuals and teams cultivate clarity, compassion, and excellence, Dr. Melanie brings a bold, restorative approach to personal and organizational transformation. She's been featured as a keynote speaker at High Point University, North Carolina, A&T State University, and National Education and Leadership Summits. As she transitions her mission-driven expertise into the corporate, nonprofit, and university sectors, Dr. Melanie offers transformational development experiences focused on mental wellness, team resilience, purpose-driven leadership, and emotional intelligence at work. Whether supporting executive teams or frontline staff, her message is clear. Whole people create whole systems. Oh, love it. She equips organizations to heal from burnout, reconnect with purpose, and lead with both vision and soul. In her life and leadership coaching services, she also helps highly ambitious women uncover blind spots, reclaim their voice and authority, and lead with strategy and soul without losing themselves.
Yeah.
Wow, that is quite a wrap. Welcome
Thank
to the show.
you. I'm glad to be here, Mel. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I have been following you a little bit on Instagram and watching your stuff, and I am really curious for when you talk about the blind spots in women. I'd love to know what got you inspired to doing this work and talk further into that.
Sure. So, in my work of consulting mostly with schools and districts, and talking about cultural humility, cultural competence, a lot of DEI work, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, we would use the term biases. And when I was doing some work around bias work, cognitive biases, a part of it that came up was blind spots, and it really intrigued me. And I even looked up before I determined that I was going to be the blind spot strategist. I said, let me look up the blind spot. And I thought about, your rear view or your side mirror, and it
Yep.
says objects may appear closer than whatever it says. And it made me think
Yes.
about how sometimes when people are coming up on our sides, if we're not looking over and giving attention to the blind spots, we could collide, right? And so I thought about
Wow.
how many blind spots we, particularly as women, right? Because anybody could have them, but my audience are highly ambitious women who carry a lot of hats and a lot of titles, right? Whether it's
Mm,
mom, wife, daughter, caregiver, let alone if you work in corporate and work,
work.
but
Yep.
all of those titles and those hats and identities yield certain blind spots. And so there is a layer of internal soul work that needs to be done to ensure that we don't collide with those blind spots,
Mm.
which could lead us to burnout, which could lead us to ongoing depression, which could lead us into isolation. All of these things that take us away from actually living out our purpose in this world.
Oh, wow. I love it. I love it so much. And I love that you're coming from a different angle to what most people do, particularly in the field of identity and purpose and all of that. I've encountered enough women that are amazing at what they do that incorporate this in their work and mindset and all of that. But I really like the angle that you're coming from. It's quite unique, but
Thank you.
needed. Like, it's actually quite necessary. Now that you've said it, it's like, "Oh, I've never really thought of that before." So, how do you help people, and what's your main process and method
So
around
I
that?
love the art of cultivating community. I know and have
Mm,
experienced the beauty in having connectedness with other human souls. I am a Christian believer, so you may hear me reference God and Christ throughout this conversation. But for me, God created us in community from the very start. And so when we are in isolation and that's ongoing, not just times of intimacy with ourselves, but I'm talking about no real connectedness, we see ourselves diminish in what we need to do because we're carrying it
Mm,
all by ourselves. So in the work I do, I'm cultivating a
yeah.
community that's local, but also I want it to become a global space where we can meet online and eventually
Mm,
I can be out in different spaces in the world speaking to women that are a part of this community.
mm.
So that's the vision going forward, but I'm trying to stay in step with God and not move too far ahead of where he has me. Yeah, but the what I like to do, for
Yeah.
example, we had an event last month was our first event called Bibles and Brunch. And it was really cute.
Oh,
It
that
was
that
fun.
sounds
The
like
ladies
fun.
came out, some of us didn't know each other, and they all talked about how they've been asking God for a community, a sisterhood, and they wanted one where it was not
Mm,
cliquish, where it did not have a mean girl syndrome, but a place where you can bare your soul without
yeah.
judgment and people can call you into yourself, your highest self. And so that's a part of the work is
Yeah.
the community. The other part is the coaching. So just working with women to strategize. What is your purpose? What is your identity? What are you here for? How can we make that work? What are your systems? All that
Mm,
type of stuff around the business or community or upward mobility that they're
yeah.
seeking.
Wow. Oh, I love that. And I love that it's when all these different people are
Yeah.
saying the same thing, that they needed a space, and here it is. It's just isn't that so exciting? Isn't it
Hmm.
exciting to see how God works and how He already had things in
Such
motion
a
before we
blessing.
even realized
Such a
that
blessing.
was the direction it was going? It is. It's so good, and I've even been looking for that myself, and so my own coaching community, we are starting a Bible study next month.
Wonderful.
So I've got a lot of people
Yeah.
in my space that are Christian, and so we're getting together and doing a Bible study. And yes, there's a big chunk of it that's sort of focused around what
Hmm.
God says around organizing and order and balance and rest and all the things that
Yeah.
fit in with it, and identity and all that kind of stuff. But even though I've got the sort of the topic and the verse maybe to start with,
Hmm.
it is open. Like I'm gonna
Hmm.
learn just as much as what these women are. Like I'm not gonna control the whole thing. I'm just gonna let God be God and do His thing. And I'm so excited because it's like I couldn't really find something
Listen,
like that
that's what he tells
exactly,
us to
so I just
do. We
created
are
one.
image bearers of the
So
creator. So, hey, that's what we do. I love
that's
that for
it.
you. Congratulations.
That's
Hmm.
it. That's it. Oh, that's so exciting. So from your, well, clearly a lot of years of experience in this, even though you're so young, so I don't know how you fit in 20 years, but but what do you feel is the main thing that holds women
Well,
back?
one of the things that I know I've experienced and through community, talking to other women, are these limiting beliefs that they have that number one sometimes starts with a lack of deservedness. So it's this idea of who am I to do this big thing that God has called me to do? Why am I special or what makes
Yeah,
me
yeah,
qualified? But there's a famous or an infamous saying that God doesn't call people who are already
yeah.
qualified. He qualifies the people that he calls. Come
I've
on, Lord.
literally got that written on here. God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called.
Right. And that part is what I find myself encouraging women with the most and giving them biblical references to see God in action, but also to tell them about how he did the same for me.
Mm,
So just because I'm Dr. Mel now, that is not even the qualifier that makes me suitable to do what God says.
yeah,
It's literally answering the call because many are called, but few
yeah.
are chosen. And the chosen are the ones who
Be
answered the
obedient.
call to God's voice of obedience. And I
Yeah,
was speaking to another woman who's also cultivating a community, and I was telling her
yeah,
that, often we want to know the 10 steps ahead so we can have it all mapped out, all organized, because that helps our bodies feel safe when we
yeah,
have a
yeah,
specific knowing. But that's not real faith when you know every step and every piece. So if you're
yeah.
doing the work that is built on your faith, you have to be
No,
okay with just doing the last thing God told you to do. Don't worry about the 10 steps ahead. Do the first, what is the first thing he told you
yeah.
to do?
Oh,
And trust that he will equip you along
yep,
the journey. When he called Abraham, to go and leave his father and his family. And he even gave
Mm,
him the promise. He didn't tell him all the little things that would come into play
um,
on that journey. But Abraham had to be a quick responder. And that's one thing I encourage
yeah,
people to think about is on this journey, what is your response time to the word of the Lord as he's given it to you? Because delayed obedience is still disobedience. So you're delaying something, and a lot of us say, I'm waiting on his timing. And in
yeah,
actuality, you're
yeah.
just fearful. He already told you to go. He already told you this.
We already told you to go. He's waiting for your next step. And I can tell you now, if God had
Hmm.
revealed every step of what would happen when I
Correct.
said yes, I probably would have been scared out of it because there is so much
Hmm.
more, twists and turns and things that you just don't anticipate that come into view.
Hmm.
But when I look at where I'm
Exactly.
at now and having walked through all of that, wouldn't change it. Like God knew that I needed those things to ground me, to grow me, stretch me, get me to the level I need to be at to operate in what I'm doing. And yes, that is a big thing because God's really been sort
I
of
know.
pivoting me as
Same.
well in actually being incorporating him more in this whole organizing thing with my community because a very big chunk of it is actually going, well, we can plan and we can schedule, we
Hmm.
can organize, we can do these things. But
Hmm.
if you're doing too much of that, you're not leaving any room for God. And
Yep.
I know
Yep.
when I
Yep.
was over organized in past years, I was miserable. It did not help. And now there is this level
Hmm.
of flexibility and balance and almost
Yep.
like a gap. You've got to allow this gap so then he can be in it. And it's like he wants us to
Mhm.
do our part. He wants us to be responsible and use the brain he gave us and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he also
So,
wants us to
so
allow that
true.
space to let him do his part, which is going to take us so much further than anything we could do on our own.
Yes, we have to learn our lessons sometimes the hard way.
I'm sorry, God. I'm back.
Mhm.
I know, but that's okay. He's a
Mhm.
good God and he's gracious too.
And that's a part that I also see a lot of us as women struggle with is seeing God as a loving, good father. Especially if we come up in religious spaces or communities or even homes where our
Mm,
fatherhood has been very strict and iron fist ruled. And so we see God as that all the time and we don't want, and so it keeps us sometimes from surrendering and
mm,
submitting because we're afraid we're going to get in
yeah.
trouble. Like, and he's like, and it's like God already sees all the things. That's number one. And he's waiting, like, come on, daughter, give this to
Yeah.
me. You've tried, you've done this, but give this to me.
Mm,
And when we release those
mm,
things to God, He will
yeah.
take our plans. Some of our plans He may laugh at, like, oh, she thought that was cute. Okay. But in some of our plans, He may endorse, and some of them He may help us restructure. And I love that gap idea that you talked about, that flexibility because that's where I am with
Mm,
the community I'm cultivating now. A woman asked me,
mm,
"Are you going to do this event later this year?" I said, "I don't really know.
mm,
But we're going to go with what God says because that's how I'm moving in this space. You know, I've got some ideas, but I have to flow with the Holy Spirit to in this kind of because this is ministry work for me outside of like
yeah.
coaching and being able to charge folks and yeah that'll
Mm,
come but this is really ministry
yeah.
work for me so I have to walk in step with him.
Yeah. Well, it's the only way it's gonna work, isn't it? Because if we try and take back control and do it in our own strength, it's just gonna
Correct.
flop. We already know that. I have so many things going on in my brain that it's like, do I do it again? Do
Yeah.
I continue
Mhm.
this? Do I try this? Do I do that? And it's like, okay, it's all just sort of in that holding pattern. Like at the airport, it's sort of just holding and holding, and it's like, okay, now I can release this or do that. And overall, though, he really is a God that likes to simplify and keep things simple. Having too many things
No,
going on,
I agree with that, Mel. I
it
agree with
just
that, and I think that's another thing that holds us back as women is we have so many things going on in our mind about how we think it should look, how it should come out, what the outcome should be. And so we even allow perfectionism. And I literally was talking to this same woman about this a
Mm.
couple days ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't focus on, first of all, how everybody else is doing it, their beautiful reels and their cute
Yeah.
posts and their aesthetics and all of that. God is not interested in any of that. And so if we keep it simple and submit it before the Lord and just do it,
Mm.
every I saw somebody speak about this and it really
Yeah.
resonated with me is that if we focus so much on the outcome every single time, we miss the beauty of the journey. We miss that the steps may be where the lesson is. It's not so even if it fails to people or it fails to this standard of
Yeah.
success that we
Yeah.
created in our own mind, the failure
Yeah.
is not there in the outcome.
Yeah.
The success is in how you look at every step because you should be, and that's what I want women to tune into more is this identity of being a lifelong learner. And that's what I use on my educational side of
Yeah.
consulting is pushing teachers and students to be lifelong
Yeah.
learners because when we're in a state of curiosity with God, like a child,
Yeah.
he said, the kingdom of heaven is like the little children. Suffer not that they come to me. And little children are asking a billion questions. They're curious. They don't really think too far
Mm.
ahead. They're very innocent. And God,
Yeah.
Jesus actually stated that's what the kingdom of heaven is like. And so when we
Yeah.
release that adult mindset that we've got to, where we
Yeah.
grew up believing that our adults in our life knew everything, but now we learn and we
Yeah.
figured out, oh,
I
they didn't know it all. And that's okay though. That's the way God designed this thing.
It's so funny that you're saying that because this has come up in conversations so many times in just the last week with various people. And I feel like even in that, God revealed something to me that I had never seen before because the conversation, come to me like a child, all this kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And I thought back to my own childhood and I'd gone through sexual abuse and all that kind of stuff. And I was
Mm.
quite responsible as a child. I had to grow up very quick. And so my childlike thinking is responsibility. And I didn't realize. So when I am coming to God with things and
Mm.
I'm thinking it's faith in my responsibility, it's not. And so I've had this huge revelation
Oh my
recently where I'm just like, this is not this is not childlike faith that I've been operating in, even though it's
God.
representative
Hmm.
of what I was like as a child. This isn't exactly what God is
Oh,
asking of me. It's good to be responsible. I get that, but I've been holding on,
yeah.
almost white knuckling it so tight that I haven't allowed God to then be God.
No, that's a mind blowing revelation because it takes me back to the work I do with women. I'm not a therapist. I would love to be, but I really don't feel like going back to school. So, I'm not a therapist. But I do a lot of internal work with myself. And I also talk to friends and family about that. And one of the things I
Yeah,
always say is that you can't be afraid to go back. And a lot of people, because of whatever their childhood encompassed, some of them are
right.
unwilling or maybe not ready in their mind to go back because what you're
Yeah.
talking about is having to unpack the parts of your childhood that were actually out of
Mhm.
order because you should have been more
Yeah.
childlike. But because of
Yeah.
certain circumstances, and I'm an eldest daughter, so I had to also be responsible. So thinking about I had never thought of that. So you really gave me something to
Mm.
take and chew on for later as I'm sitting
Yeah.
with God because that was my mindset. Even my mother was telling me, even as a little girl, you were like the first in your class to do this and you always were helping doing that. And I'm like, but why was I like that?
Mm.
Like,
So, why did I have this need to be like that? And I'm still doing that without even realizing it, even though I'm free from
mhm.
so many things, there's still these tendencies that I didn't even realize I was doing that's just trained into me, to be honest.
I
It's been
get it.
trained into me and I have to unlearn because I always I got frustrated, particularly with my sister, who's very carefree
Hmm.
in a lot of ways. I mean, she's responsible, of course. She's an adult now, but as a kid, she just she could do whatever she
Yeah.
wanted, and it was, you know, not thinking
Mhm.
of the consequences so much. It was just, and there was a part of me that goes like, "How could you be like that?" But then also, "How could you be like that?" You know, it was just, yeah, and it's interesting because I almost feel like God is peeling it back and actually just being more childlike
Mhm.
and getting me to
Mhm.
actually observe my own children and what their behaviors are like. And yes, there are some that frustrate me, but to be honest, if I was going back to 8-year-old me, it probably would have frustrated me then too. You know,
Yeah.
it's they are different, but they're also not growing up in trauma or anything like that. And
Yeah.
they are completely carefree. I mean, they've got some things they've gotta do around the house and things like that. They've got good
That's
childhoods,
beautiful.
and so it's interesting that God's bringing this up
Yeah.
to me now.
And that kind of work that we're talking about is the kind of work that brings an intimacy with God that I also feel like is a limitation with a lot of women is because we are so busy doing all the things. It's like the Mary and the Martha comparison of the sisters. Always been the Martha. We're responsible.
Yeah.
We're doing what we're supposed to do as good daughters, as good women, as good
Yeah.
wives, but we miss out on the beauty of intimacy and sitting at the feet of Jesus, which is where we bring all of our curiosities like how can they be like that, or why did this have to happen in my life, and what is it that you're going to work out of
Yeah.
this for me to show and put into the world? And I think when we can sit and take that time, and I know it's hard for
Yeah.
moms, I know it's hard for wives, because I've carried those titles. My daughters are one is about to be 16 and the other is 19. So I
Yeah.
know even what it's like to have smaller children and the demand it puts on you while also going to school and working a full-time job as a teacher, right? So I get it. But my freedom
Mm.
came when I decided I'm
Wow.
gonna wake up an hour earlier, or I'm going to put them to bed on time, and we're
Yeah.
gonna do a routine, whether we are kicking and screaming doing it until it becomes the thing
Wow.
that allows
Yeah.
me to have an hour or two to myself, some time with God before I go to sleep. Because
Yeah.
it's such a disservice to ourselves when we run
Yeah.
ourselves throughout the whole day and you don't have you.
Yeah.
You don't have any parts to yourself. I saw a lady talk
Yeah.
about it on TikTok. She was like, some of us need to get our graham crackers back because you gave your husband all the graham crackers, you gave the babies all the graham crackers, and you don't have any graham crackers. You got to have
Yeah.
something for
Yeah.
yourself so that you don't literally look at when your kids get older. Now you're twiddling your thumbs. Who am I? And that happens so often.
Exactly. Man, you you are saying exactly the things that I help women with because they come to me to help them get organized. That's where we start. But really it goes so much deeper than that because the big part of my 5 pillars, one of them is the self-care
Same.
in there and going, "Okay, now we need to have the time for you because you are more productive,
Mhm.
you are more efficient when
Mhm.
you've been able to look after yourself first." I like
Right.
getting up before my family and having a coffee and journaling and whatever else and having that time
Come
because
on.
I then can handle whatever happens next with the school rush and all that kind of stuff. You know, I'm not a monster in the morning. But it's just having that
Mhm.
time for me, like I'm important too. My kids are important, my husband's important, but I'm important
Mhm.
too. And I want to and that's what I do. I help a lot of women actually see their importance and be able to practically fit it in their day as well and go,
Yeah,
well, what can we
that's right.
simplify, delete, delegate, delay, do differently? You know, going through all of that and just
Yes.
this is just so
Mhm.
it's something that comes up all the time because it's something that the message needs to keep being repeated because there's
Yes.
always a new woman that's hearing this that just
Yes.
needs to hear that you are
Mhm.
so important. You are
Yeah.
important, and it's time to put things in place where
Mhm.
you can put yourself first and still be a good mum,
Mm.
still be a good wife.
Mm. 'Cause you owe it to yourself because you've always been with you. You've always had you. No, when even when you felt betrayed by people or you felt hurt by people or you were harmed by people, you still always had yourself. And so because we have betrayed ourselves to people please, we have harmed ourselves or set in
Yeah.
sabotage because of imposter
Yep.
syndrome. All of these narratives build an
Yep.
internal meter within ourselves that says, I can't even trust me. I can't
Yep.
trust myself to stand up for myself. I can't trust myself to speak
Mm.
up and enact boundaries and sustain boundaries that keep me healthy. I don't trust myself to
Yeah.
say no and put a period on it. And so you start you start mistrusting your own self. And that's when I
Yeah.
see a lot of women go down this, I won't say a huge downward spiral because that can look like just the cyclical, monotone nature of doing
Mm.
life just the same every day. Yeah, you stop dreaming, you stop investing in your hobbies, you stop getting cute if that's your thing. You stop doing all of those things because you just want to be a good mom. Or you just but you have to think about what is that teaching the children that are
Yeah.
watching you?
Exactly. There's a lot of things I've had to work on as a mum because I don't want
Right.
my daughter or my sons to turn out
Mm,
the way that I did in this particular area.
correct.
Not that I don't not that I see a big problem with
Mhm.
myself, but it's like I got to be careful with the way that I talk about the way I look, particularly around my daughter
Yeah.
because she's got curly red hair and
Mhm.
cute little thing that's getting freckles and that too. And it's like, well, I need to speak
Right.
well of the way I
Mhm.
look because she's a little me. And she's taking that in, and I remember what it felt like to be bullied for the way that I looked, and so it's like I've
Yeah.
had to do a lot of work on that, so then I don't pass on my
Mhm.
verbal vomit onto her.
Mhm.
There's there's gonna be things in life that challenge us, that are uncomfortable, that we walk through, but ultimately, it's like, I'm glad I did because I'm I'm so much further ahead than I could have even imagined me being at this point in my life. So it's
Okay.
good. Oh my goodness. I feel like we could just keep going on and on and on and all of this. Yes. So, oh, it's so good. So, if people want to get in touch with you, want to actually be part of your community, see what you're doing, all of that, where can they find you best?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the places. If you Google me, just put Melanie Desmuke-Battles. Yeah, you'll find all of my stuff. But if you look at the links in my bio on Instagram, you will find a link to the community there, and you can join our email list and whatever God puts forward. I would love to engage. I know the Lord has showed me that I will have international connections, and it's been amazing. Now that I'm just thinking about it, you're in Australia. And then 2 weeks ago, I was on a call with some women in Nigeria, and we had the same type of, well, I did more of a presentation workshop style with them, but it's already been that way. I didn't even think about that till right now. So, yeah. So we're open to whatever.
I'll make sure all the links and everything are in the show notes there to keep it nice and simple for the listeners. But thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed it.